Hello and welcome to a special edition of Zach's Friday Finish Line. We're your hosts, Maddie Johnson and Ryan McQueenie, and we're joined by Kathleen Smith from Renaissance Capital. We're going to be talking about the popular smartphone app Snapchat and its parent company Snap Inc. highly anticipated IPO. Enjoy!
When Snap Inc. originally announced its IPO plans, it filed for a $3 billion debut that would make it the largest offering since Alibaba in 2014. We recently found out even more information related to the specifics of the IPO, including share prices that could help Snap surpass this $3 billion level. Can you touch on what we know about the pricing and size of this IPO so far?
Sure. I think I'd start out by saying that Snap, given its IPO, the size of its deal, which is $3 billion at the midpoint of the range, it probably will end up being closer to a $4 billion IPO when all is said and done. That will make Snap the largest U.S.-based tech IPO after Facebook, so the second largest ever U.S.-based tech IPO. That is some of the reason why investors are paying a lot of attention to this IPO. And in addition, there has not been a tech IPO in the IPO market so far this year, and there are many, many waiting in the wings. So Snap is going to be an important barometer for that its success should sort of open up the floodgates of a lot of other tech companies going public.
Yeah, so Snapchat it's a free-to-use application for smartphones. I know I don't have a Snapchat, but I feel like I should just download Snapchat. Kathy, do you have a Snapchat account on your phone?
I do, but I find it very challenging. But once in a while, I have children and they send me things, so I can see what it is.
Ryan, you have a Snapchat, right?
I do have a Snapchat. I'm surprised that you don't, Maddie, but I don't know. I've probably had one downloaded on my phone for years and years and years now. So
yeah,
or it feels like it at least. Realistically, like 3 or 4. So.
Yeah. Kathy, can you talk a bit about how the company makes money? I guess for those who are not familiar with the app, so talk about how the company makes money and like what the user experience is like.
Yes, and I will start out by saying that it's kind of hard if you're not in this 18 to 34 age demographic to totally understand it. It amazed me to think a company could have a $20 billion valuation, and one of its sort of signature snaps had been this rainbow barf. But basically they have an engaging, video-oriented engagement that produces, and that also they work with advertisers to connect, to produce an engagement in a similar way. So they're able, basically, the revenue comes from advertisers paying to access this demographic who are, using snaps, including passing along snaps that are made by advertisers. So that is the big deal, and investors who are analyzing Snap are really focused on what's happening with the advertising revenue and how not only the number of users, that's a key metric and how it's growing, but also the advertising spend per user or the average revenue per user, and how that is at a fairly low point now and should be expected to expand, which will drive their revenue growth.
So Snapchat co-founder and current Snap Inc. CEO and relative babyface Evan Spiegel is currently the youngest person in the world, I believe, with a net worth over $1 billion. He's just 26 years old. Life is good for young Evan. With this IPO set to boost Snapchat's valuation even further, his personal wealth should swell even more. Beyond this, what do we know about Snapchat's CEO, and how important will his leadership be for the future of the company?
Oh, yes. Investors are going to care quite a bit about that, and it's hard to think that such a young guy could do what he's done so far and become so wealthy. I sometimes wonder whether he's looking for the way the company's set up. They're selling shares in this offering, and I wonder why these founders who already have this wealth would sell at the time of the offering. And they have some other incentives that really look like a reach for an awful lot of at least getting into the top most wealthiest person at that age category. They seem to be going for that metric. But investors are going to care quite a bit, and I think there's some belief they have in what they've done that they've been able to unlock the key to this demographic and do very well and possibly keep it up and move in this direction of video first and camera oriented product. But the thing that they have done is they've created this class of non-voting shares for new investors, so they basically control the company. They're selling on the offering, so the structure of this requires investors to really count on this management, and there's just so much they have not done that is important to investors, and number one is make money.
So like many startups, Snapchat does not come without controversy. Its ephemeral platform has led to sexting issues that it was like one of the biggest news stories, I think, when Snapchat first became popular was sexting. And some of its face filters have been accused of racism. Do you think this will hinder any potential investors?
I don't think so. I think investors are looking at whether the company can grow. From what we know, they're not focused on sort of going down the pornography route, which is a route you can take. We don't really see that. So it's a question of keeping the audience engaged, and also, since much of the content is disappearing, a way that seems to attract this demographic that they're looking for. So, they may be walking on a fine line, and parents don't like the fact that the children like it because it disappears. so there is that issue, but that's sort of the appeal, and that's how they make the money. And I think investors won't be bothered by that unless there really is an orientation to pornography. I think it has to be more than what we've seen so far.
Okay, so let's shift a little bit now to kind of a newer venture that Snap Inc. is involved in, which is last September they announced Spectacles, which are these $130 per pair sunglasses.
Like the cooler version of Google Glass.
Yeah, or at least...
And I never thought Google Glass was too cool.
That's a very fair point.
I don't know what that makes the Snap glasses.
So maybe that's already an answer to the question. But so they're $130 a pair, and they're sunglasses that can shoot first-person video and are kind of optimized to be used with Snapchat. So do you think that this sort of almost GoPro-y type of first-person Google Glass type of
smart glasses,
is that something that's going to be a major focus in the future, or just kind of like a cool little side gadget?
We look at glasses as, with Google and Snap and others, looking at ways to embed, functionality on the body. And somebody's going to figure it out. Just not so sure what we've seen so far is going to be the answer, but they're trying, and you have to give them credit for trying, because it will happen. Something that will be so non-intrusive, or kind of, you won't be too creeped out by seeing somebody with some kind of glasses on, they're recording, and you're supposed to realize it, but you don't. So society has to get used to something, and companies are going to try to figure it out. It's like self-driving cars.
Yeah.
It'll happen. It's just how it's exactly going to be implemented isn't too clear. But we got to give them credit for trying.
It's like that Black Mirror episode where contact lenses that record every second of your life.
Yeah. We're living in the future.
And you upload the video to whatever hard drive you have in your home, and you re-watch your life in front of you. It's a terrifying episode.
I never like to look back at what I did.
So while it's well known how much Facebook has copied Snapchat's platform over the years, Facebook even tried to buy the company for $3 billion back in 2013, along with Google. Should Snapchat look to Facebook on how to succeed at being more than just a social media company?
Well, I think there are two sides to that point. One is that Facebook has been, it looks like, doing everything they can to copy what Snap's doing. So I think there's some feeling that Instagram has taken on functionality that Snap has, and that may, in fact, have slowed down a little bit the sequential growth in their users from over the last 2 quarters. So we have that going on, but you're asking about, I think, a very important question about the size of the market. And investors are going to look at, in addition to, just looking at user growth and what they can obtain from advertisers per user, they're going to say, what happens if you can get outside of this demographic if it doesn't provide a broad enough user base, and can you capture a broader demographic, which is what Facebook did. They started it mainly with college students and then basically scaled way beyond that. So the question is, can that be done? And would that actually, in doing so, would you lose your coolness factor with this 18 to 34 age group market? So that is a very big question. I think that Facebook will have this very big multiple because they are addressing a much bigger market.
Okay, I kind of want to get your personal take on that "can it be done" question, because now that Instagram has, as we've put it, kind of copied the idea. I mean, it's called Instagram Stories,
That's
which is
what I use now.
literally it's Snapchat Stories. So they even took the word,
they took the name.
How big are we talking about that Snapchat can get, or do you think that the plateau is kind of already on the horizon for the company?
It wouldn't rule out what Snap could do at this point, but certainly, and you've really hit it. If you hit on this point about competition is so important, so you really hit on all the key points, I think, that are going to get into this. And they relate to, what would you pay? What kind of a price would you pay to be a shareholder of Snap? Would you pay a price that assumes that it's got this defined 18 to 34 and that it can get more revenue per average user per quarter? Right now they have $1.05 per quarter, and could they get to $4 or $3? Facebook gets $7 per quarter. So how much can you milk the advertising out of the base, and then how do you grow that base? Can they get users to use it more? So when you get out to the broader base, you begin, I think, to get to periods of time that are very hard to forecast. I think the company is trying to perhaps get us there by saying, look, we are totally focused on, when Facebook went public, the issue was, hey, you've got a PC platform, you're not mobile. And some of that came into the early issues of the poor trading in Facebook stock. When Facebook showed that it could convert to mobile, it was just a darling for investors because they knew then how to monetize on mobile. Now we have Snap on mobile, and they're saying everything's going to be video. And other platforms are behind on that. Could that take the Snap platform up to this level of, and to the user numbers that Facebook has? That, I think, is a longer-term proposition. You have to discount for a lot of risks of it getting there in terms of its valuation. And, I think that really the more serious investors are going to take a wait-and-see attitude about that and not going to look at a valuation based on that.
So still lots of questions for, I guess, the long-term future of Snapchat, but in the near term, plenty of exciting things going on. It's going to be
everyone's hyped up.
Yeah, the next few weeks are going to be plenty. I mean, who can blame? Who can?
It's the biggest tech IPO
in years. Yeah,
in years.
I know. So,
and they're jumping into a void right now because the IPO market has been very slow for tech. But we know that there has to be more because there's just a backup of tech companies that have been funded that haven't been able to monetize their, get out from their private setups and sell or go public. It will be very interesting, and I'd say it'll be interesting all the way up to pricing, and then especially for a company that's not making money, and that's the case here, expect the stock to be very volatile.
Yeah. Meaning
if investors they'll get nervous every time there's some thinking that earnings could be a little further off just because we don't have them. There isn't sort of the hook into earnings that you can have on some kind of a multiple. It's out so far. The stock will have a certain kind of volatility that is going to make it a little bit difficult to own if you're not prepared.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to hearing from you again in the future. Lots of great stuff to learn about Snapchat.
It was a really good insight.
Yeah, lots of great insight. And excuse us for being very excited. We're going to continue to be very excited about it for the next few weeks, as I'm sure you are too. But thanks again for joining us, and we will talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Once again, that was Kathleen Smith from Renaissance Capital, and listeners can look forward to hearing more from her as other IPO news breaks in the future.
In the meantime, for those who are interested in the firm or the Snapchat IPO, we should mention that Renaissance's IPO ETF recently hit a 52-week high, and based on its market valuation, Snap Inc. will be a candidate for inclusion in the ETF after it debuts. This means that the IPO ETF could be the first exchange-traded fund on the market to hold Snap Inc.
So that's really exciting. So thanks for listening. And remember, if you think we missed anything or if you want us to cover a different story, shoot us an email at podcast@zacks.com. You can also check out all of our other exclusive audio content at zacks.com/podcast.
Remember to subscribe and leave us a rating on iTunes. Thanks for joining us on this episode of The Finish Line, and we will see you next week.